Welcome to Legacy Engineered, the show where smart structure meets lasting success. Join Scott Arden, Chairman and CEO of Controllers Limited, as he sits down with business leaders, top entrepreneurs, and experts to uncover the strategies, stories, and structures that build lasting legacies. And now, here's your host, Scott Arden.
Welcome back to Legacy Engineer, the podcast where we break down how real builders design wealth, freedom, and lasting impact. I'm your host, Scott Arden, and in each episode, we talk with entrepreneurs, investors, and strategists who aren't just building companies, they're engineering legacies. Today's guest is Tom Shipley. Tom's a serial entrepreneur, a mergers and acquisitions strategist, and the creator of the Add a Zero philosophy, a strategy that helps founders multiply their business value through smart acquisitions. From serving in the Israeli Defense Forces Special Operations to building brands for over $2 billion in revenue, Tom has spent his career proving one core belief. Most business problems aren't solved by working harder, they're solved by doing the right deal. He has scaled companies past 100 million, raised over 100 million in capital, and now teaches founders how to engineer massive growth through acquisitions. Tom, welcome to Legacy Engineered.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Glad you're here. I know we were trying to get this booked for a little while, but our calendars weren't matching up. So here we are.
Perfect. Well, great to be here.
Awesome. So, Tom, your story's wild. You went from IDF Special Forces to building companies doing billions in revenue. What were the biggest lessons from that early chapter of your life that still influence how you build companies today?
Well, I have to look at the different things that influenced me over the years that help create my playbook as well as my philosophy and the way I do things in business. And I'm going to say that there is the pieces that absolutely being in special forces taught me. And some of the wrong, some things in the military is that you see the objective and the goal, but you have to chunk it up and take one piece at a time. You never lose the objective and what you're ultimately building, actually going to accomplish, but you have to actually break it up into parts and basically fight one battle at a time in order in the war. Sorry about the military analogy there, but that's really it. You learn things in the military such as tenacity. And again, as all entrepreneurs I know of, you have this level of grit, and that's why I love entrepreneurs is we just don't quit. We set an objective and we hit walls, we hit concrete walls, and occasionally a concrete wall falls on our head. And still we just keep on going because we don't quit. So again, those are all the pieces. And one of the other powerful things I learned in special forces was we are all trained as medics. And so in a mass casualty event, you never have the proper amount of tools and resources you need. So you have to improvise. And back then, as a good medic is one who improvises. But you think about as a entrepreneur, we never have the resources we need. And if I see a company that started with too much resources, that's probably the quickest path for failure. So again, there's things that happens as far as our learning, but you never have enough resources. It's all about resourcefulness. So again, and that shaped me, but then also along the way, as from an industrial engineer to doing my first businesses, exactly. I like to look for the opportunities, create the vision, and then basically, I'm a business architect. And I think if you challenge yourself as an entrepreneur, that's what we are. We see a vision and then we create the plan to get there. We don't have all the details, but we clearly know the next step and the next step and next step. And then the biggest thing that blocks us, Scott, is us the way we see ourselves is, do we see ourselves as the person who's going to clearly be there at the finish line and we become that person along the way? Or do we let the noise of what's in our head block us from that success? But the same thing with any platform, whether I'm scaling something from scratch and organically, or through looking for force multipliers and levers on how I can compress time and get there faster and at lower risk.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I know that's one of the things we always talk about, or I say a lot is, of course I struggle. I just don't quit. So kind of going back to what you were talking about there. And I love the, the improvise kind of analogy there is, yes, sometimes you don't have the resources, so you improvise, and then and then hey, I've got to find that resource and bring them in as part of the team, right? So that doesn't happen again. That's awesome. I love it. So, when did you realize entrepreneurship, not military or something traditional, was where you belong?
Oh, that's in me. That's just ingrained in me, and that's my family thing. When I actually graduated with my master's degree and got a job at AT&T, my family went, "What?" It was just, and I lived the corporate life for 3 years, and for me, it was the worst 3 years that I've ever had. And that's, because there's just something about having the freedom to make your own decisions and be responsible for the outcome. And when you're held back through bureaucracy and inability to execute, it's basically it kills the heart and soul of an entrepreneur if that's who you are in nature. And therefore, for me, it was basically me going back to entrepreneurship was really great for me. When I got out of the army is when I started my first real business. I wish I could say I had a great business in junior high and high school, but that wasn't me. It was after the army. When you go through special forces, you realize the odds don't matter. And all you can see yourself is on the other side. And you also ask in general in business is what's the risk? What's the worst thing that can happen? And we're always asking what's the one way or two way doors. So when you're young and you're starting your first business, you really don't have any risk. And so I started my first business with $100, and I saw what I thought was a big white space opportunity, and I jumped all in, and it was incredible the learning that I did. But that's the creativity and that's the excitement of being an entrepreneur, and you take the leaps of faith, and therefore, business after business is entrepreneur is who I am. Entrepreneurs, what's built for us is we see problems and we see opportunities, and we want to solve all of them. We see things that we know that other people don't or choose not to see. We see ways to solve them. And our greatest challenge as entrepreneurs, and you know this, Scott, yourself, is we have to learn to say no to most everything. Everything's exciting. Everything's an opportunity. And we are uniquely set on this earth to solve them, but we can't. And therefore it's focus, focus, focus.
Yep, 100%. I agree with that. It's all kind of that experiential kind of learning learning curve way. Exactly. Exactly. So one of the most interesting parts of your story is that you acquired a $15 million company while your business was in a cash crisis. Most founders would be cutting expenses in that situation. You kind of went the opposite direction. What was happening at that moment? What made you think the solution here is to buy another company?
Okay, and let's be very clear, Scott, that happened twice to me with my first two real businesses. And so what's really interesting is breakdown is the context for breakthrough, and we don't really get creative and see what we can accomplish until all else has failed and we have no choice. And so that's what happened with my first business is it was Web 1.0. We started that business. I found what I saw a purple ocean opportunity and decided to create a brand, and fast forward with the $10,000 of initial investment. Fast forward 2 years later, we have an online business. Back then is 1999. We were mailing out millions of catalogs every month. Yes, the things that shows up in your mailbox.
Yep.
And then we had 12 pages in the Sky Mall magazine. Life was really good. Then what happened is the dot-com bust happened. Capital dried out. Consumer confidence went down. Average order and conversion rates goes down. Now we're losing money. My CFO said, "Tom, we have 30 days of cash." Now, Scott, you and I are entrepreneurs. We don't listen to that. We know we're scrappy. We can stretch things. So I know we had 90 days of cash.
Yep.
But what you do is you get to work with whatever you could. And we optimized everything in our business and couldn't get there. So I started working the phones, and I called one of the many calls I did. I called an investment banker in New York, and he said, "Tom, it's pretty funny you called. I've been meaning to call you." I said, "Why?" He said, "I representing Boise Cascade. We're selling off a $750 million division. I have a buyer for that, and they have the perfect business that's a great compliment for you, and you're the ideal buyer." I'm thinking, I can't make payroll in a couple of months, but okay, let's go for this.
Right.
And he said, it's a $50 million business. profitable, and it was a perfect complement to our business. And it's the first lesson I've learned is that if you have a very motivated seller, because remember, they had this small little nit of a business blocking their big acquisition. That's what they cared about, or to sell their business. So us taking this challenge off their hand, and therefore price and terms, we can come to a price that was good for their financials, and so they didn't have to write things off, but also on terms that were good for me. Fast forward, within 30 days, we got a return on the full investment. And then a year later, I exited that business.
Oh,
And
wow.
again, that was a very, very good lesson in my first business, but I needed that 2 years later, that lesson.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess that was the opportune time for it to happen, right?
That's it. That's it. And sometimes, if you reach out and make enough contacts and have enough conversation, those once in a lifetime opportunities will happen on a regular basis. Because fast forward 2 years later, my new business partner and I decided to take my playbook on how to build iconic brands and apply it to an industry where um, everyone laughed at us when they heard that two former special forces guys were going to be launching a we say we're going to launch and we're going to create $100 million beauty brand using direct response marketing. Now, remember, Scott, this is 2005, where no one built using direct response. Now you say, of course, but back then no one did it. Everyone
Right.
laughed at us, and we had such strong conviction about unit economics, our ability to create great stories, convert customers, that we were going to win. And with that conviction, we went in all the way. And to my wife's chagrin, we went, and his wife's also, we went in financially with everything the company had, all maxed out, all business credit cards, personal credit cards, mortgage, second mortgage of the house. We even were running out of money to feed both his two girls, I had two little girls at that point, even to feed them. And so we found that we could actually get loans out against our cars. So we actually got, and so yeah, as we ate our way
Okay.
through the bumpers, but we knew that suddenly we were done, we were cooked. And we couldn't bar. We would hit 331,000 in revenue. We proved the model work after a year from a lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, in print, radio, and online. We just ran out of cash and couldn't get it from anywhere. And
Right.
then my partner said to me, "So what now?" I said, "Well, the last time this happened to me, we went out and bought a company." And that's exactly what happened. We found a $15 million business, throwing off $1.5 million in cash in Hoboken, New Jersey. The challenge we had is in our business, not only way to cash flow challenge, it was me and him in an attic in Richmond, Virginia, with a small little company. So, but what we didn't have it was back then, we didn't have a great tech stack. You didn't have Shopify or other funnel platforms on demand. We did not have any type of funnel technology, any platform ability. Processing orders was manual, taking calls was manual. Everything was painful in that business. And we didn't have a programmer. So everything was difficult. Now suddenly we found a business, 15 million cash flow, 1.5 million of profit, great designer, developer, fulfillment, customer service, and the ability to do A/B testing. With that, we acquired that business. Again, we had no cash personally, and we were done. We bought that business, and what we acquired was a designer, a developer, fulfillment, customer service, accounting, everything we needed. We put our little brand on top of this little $331,000 brand. Within 3 years, we did $100 million. We did $1 billion on that first skincare brand. And then we
Nice.
launched other brands after that. Acquisitions, as you said at the very beginning, can solve almost every business challenge. Could we have done it? How we would have done that? We would have found a way because we don't quit, but it was the magic that we needed to really scale that business.
Right, right. Well, that's definitely the true definition of leveraging, no, understanding that there's good debt, there's bad debt. Ultimately, if you're leveraging all of those assets because you know that the outcome of the acquisition of the business is going to essentially, not only bring that money back and but also make more on top of it. So that's awesome. A lot of people don't, wouldn't take that challenge, if you will.
And again, at that point in time, remember, we had no choice. We were
That's
out of options. So again, it's one of those things is so we went and did something that we pulled out. And so that's why it's a shift in entrepreneurs' minds that we're trying to set is you do not have to wait to the other shoe to fall to make those key strategic moves that you've always wanted to make that you want to do. You have the option, you can do that. I want every entrepreneur to think of themselves not only as a business grower and scaler, we start businesses, we scale them, but also that they're acquirers. It's a natural talent that entrepreneurs have an advantage in, and they should be thinking about it. And they do not have to hit $100 million to achieve that. As I shared, we had $331,000 in revenue, and we were with a slight loss, and we were 1 year old, and we did a $15 million acquisition.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. I've never heard that story. I've heard of some of them, but I've never heard that one. So that's awesome. I thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
So you've built your reputation around the add a zero philosophy. For people hearing that for the first time, what does that actually mean? And why do most founders completely miss this opportunity?
And in certain ways, they do. They just haven't codified it. And I'll give you an example. My first business was when I left corporate America. I was thinking, wow, if I can only get this consulting business to $1 million, and that was my goal. My next business, well, we exceeded that. My goal was, can I get this next business to 10 million? My next business was 100 million. So I'm adding a zero from that. It just, it happened over time because with every business, whether you succeed, you push the next business to the next level, or whether you don't succeed, you learn and you just set higher expectations. Now you have a new floor to you. And so what I love to do is I love to do the exercise of intentionality of think of your business. Now, whatever your business is, I want you to think about whatever your dream and your vision is for the next 3 years. Okay, now, what is the revenue of that business? How does it operate? Now add a zero to that. If your goal is to build a 5 million, for example, a $3 million business, add a zero. What does that look like at a $30 million business? How would that operate? What does it mean for you? What is the profit that the business is throwing off? How is it impacting your customers, your service? What is your role in that company? Meaning that sometimes in most entrepreneurs is the smaller you are living at, you're basically you're an A player playing a level C game. And the more you can get out of the day-to-day of the business, you get to really learn what you're capable of and having impact. So having this $30 million business, what does that feel like? What is the impact? Great. Now let's do this again. Add a zero on. What does this business look at 300 million? How would this operate? How would your team look? What service would you provide? Now, I'm not saying you should take your $3 million and suddenly tomorrow say, I'm going to hit $300 million. The purpose of this is conceptual blockbusting. It is taking the way you think about business and then be creative. And then the question is okay, so I want to have a business that's 10 times larger than my size. I've already looked at it at 10 times and 100 times, but let me just take this at 10 times. Then it's a question I learned at the very beginning of COVID by a professor from Harvard who wrote a great paper about when we've had a lot of bad things happen to our business or our operational people and all our people. Every time we have a great idea, they're going to tell us why it's not going to work for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason, and therefore we can't. And the question to reverse to them, but I'm going to challenge you to do to ask this question is, what would have to be true to make this possible? What would you have to rewrite about your operating assumptions to make this possible? If I can't share a story, Scott, about the power of this add a zero and add a zero.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That was actually going to be one of my next questions is,
okay.
So,
Example.
yep.
So it's the very beginning of COVID. And so first of all, the first 2 weeks were nerve wracking. We didn't know if we can work remote. Then we went 100% remote. And this is our beauty business. And at that point we created the category women's hair loss, hair and knee, and it basically owned the market. But we were worried about what this means with COVID hitting. But after 2 weeks, we saw a level of stability. I was saving between 3.5 hours a day, no longer commuting from Northern Bergen County, New Jersey, down to our offices in Jersey City. And so with the extra time, I decided, wouldn't it be fun? I don't want to drink all the time and watch Tiger King. So as an entrepreneur, we always think about what are the opportunities that are out there? What are the first, second, and third order impacts that are out there that we can take advantage of that other people aren't thinking about? It has always been times of breakdown in the, I'm going to say, in the macro economy that has created some of my biggest opportunities as I was thinking strategically is what opportunities are out there. So same thing here. So I started having a lot of phone calls, identifying a lot of growing different segments, opportunities. And then I said, let me just start with something. I called a buddy of mine up in Austin, Texas, and I said, Brian, we've always talked about doing something together. Why don't we buy a personal care brand together, Amazon, Ecom, I don't care, and just do this together. And he owned a great little agency. So he said, I'm game. So I said, okay, great. And then COVID, you had time to think, add a zero, add a zero. I called him up the next day and I said, Brian, how would you feel instead of buying one, we build a platform where we can acquire over time and scale 10 brands. He said, I'm game. Then I said, okay, Tom, we have a real problem. At Atlantic Coast Brands, we're having trouble managing over 3 brands at one time. The largest brands always get the oxygen and the best resources. So therefore, I started thinking about what would have to be different. And then over the weekend, because you have a lot of time to think during early phases of COVID, what entered my head is add a zero. So I said, what would, and then I called Brian up and I said, Brian, how would you like to build a platform that over time we can acquire and manage 100 brands? What would this mean for us? And it's very clear that we have a new way of building a iconic CPG company, multi-brand CPG company. So, and so we start with this is asking that question. Now, everything I know about business and operating brands would basically say you would explode and fail and don't do it. And then I sat down and said, okay, Brian, let's work through this. What would have to be true to make this possible? And let's write every operating assumptions we'd have to do, not only from capital, operations, people, the way we manage brands, inventory. So really going through that and then say, can we make this true? Can we make this true? Can we make this true? How can we do this? And then we did that. And with that, we basically said, we're in. We built the financial model. We went and put together a 12-point PowerPoint deck. We met with 7 private equity groups. Now, this is strange. On Zoom, this was really new, beginning of COVID. 7 private equity firms. We got 6 term sheets for $100 million each.
Oh, wow.
So therefore, and that's how we put 2 of our favorite together and launched Foundry Brands with a $100 million commitment. And that was it. And that's how we launched the brand. So, but what happened when we had the zero? If I would have said, hey, Brian and I are starting this business and we want to recruit some really amazing talent to buy this one $3 million or $4 million or $5 million brand, how much people would be excited about that? When we created this big vision, we had people who wanted to join. We had people that wanted to help out and support us. We had people that wanted to finance us. Sometimes when we're thinking too small, we're missing the opportunities. And sometimes by thinking bigger, actually the wind comes behind our back.
Wow. I was just thinking, just kind of thinking through that. That's deep. I like that. I like that. Well, cool. So, a lot of founders focus on growth, but not engineering the exit. What are buyers actually looking for when they value a company? And what makes it go from, say, a 3x multiple to a 10x multiple?
Okay, so there's a really good question. First of all, someone taught me in my first business, he said, Tom, he said, build a good business and there'll be there'll be a number of buyers for the business. So that, let me put it this way, is you cannot perfectly engineer something that is not a good business to maximize the sale. That's just called luck. Okay. And it happens sometimes. Someone sells a shitty business for a lot of money, but that's very, very rare. The probability is against you for doing that. So first of all is, do you have a good business? Do you have a solid business? When someone buys a business, they're buying it based on the predictability that they can get consistent results as you've gotten over the last couple of years, and it will continue to grow from there. And that's the foundation of it. And if there are issues with your business, fundamental, those are things that people are going to discount the value of your business. We call those discount factors. Imagine this. I have a business where I have 100 clients and every client has equal amount of revenue and profit contribution. So if I lose one, not a big deal. Flip that to another way. I have a business where one customer is 70% of my business. that's going to prevent your business from being sold. And if so, it is a significant discount factor on the value or the terms of selling your business. So again, that is, so just from a understanding of some of the fundamentals of why someone's buying a business. Now, the next biggest indication on what you're going to sell for them is how businesses are valued. And I'm going to make this simple. Businesses are valued based on a multiple. Typically, it's of EBITDA or your profit of the business and your cash flows. So, for example, you have a business that at 250,000 to 300,000 EBITDA, you might have a 1 to 2 times multiple of that people value your business at. At 500,000, you may be at 3. At $1 million, you might be at 4. Now imagine this. I have 2 businesses, and this is so cool. This is what my partner at in the advisory board and DealCon says the 9th wonder of the world, multiple expansion. Imagine this. I have a business that's doing $500,000 of EBITDA. Okay. There's a business that is a perfect complement to my business that we're collaboration that is $500,000 EBITDA. Now, if I buy, and so they're worth 3 times $500,000, they're worth $1.5 million. I'm worth 3 times 500. I'm worth $1.5 million. We put these 2 businesses together. They complement each other. Now they have an EBITDA of $1 million. Now they're worth 5 times 1 million. So I just took businesses, 2 $1.5 million businesses. That's what they're worth, 3 million total. And by putting them together like this, now they're worth actually $5 million. I created $2 million of value. That is the power of multiple expansion. So why is it the higher the multiple? I was asked this yesterday. Why is it the higher the multiple, the more value a business is worth? Well, think about it is if a business has, I'm going to go to a higher number, $5 million of EBITDA, consistent growth year over year, last 5 years. The odds of them disappearing and going out of business is very strong. The odds of them having predictable continued growth is very high. So someone with a lot of money would rather buy one business that is predictable, that I can bet on and focus on with 5 million than maybe 5 businesses at $1 million or $50 million, 50 businesses at a smaller amount again. So it's basically, and the larger you are, the more sophisticated money is, private equity, ventures, whatever that is, or larger companies that have deeper pockets. So, and also the number of companies that are achieving if you look at the percent of companies that hit $500,000 in $500,000 of EBITDA a year versus $1 million versus 5 and 10, again, it's drastically goes down. So it's also the law of supply and demand. There's just not a lot out there to buy. So that's why the larger the EBITDA, the more value the enterprise is.
That makes sense. I love how excited you get about this. You can just see it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. By the way, this is the greatest game in the world. And we're not talking about sophisticated math where you need a PhD from MIT to really understand this. There's basic concepts. You understand that there are playbooks to do acquisitions. Now, there are those people that see a Instagram video, basically a video on Instagram and a YouTube video. Now suddenly they think they can go out and do acquisitions, and it's kind of like watching children playing with chainsaws.
Yep.
There's a process to follow to making sure you dot your I's and cross your T's on how you talk to a large number of sellers, how you actually create deal structures that work for you, that minimize your risk, and what you learn along the way in your due diligence process. And most important is, whenever you think about the excitement of acquisition, remember the acquisition, the process leading up is basically dating, the engagement, and basically the wedding. The real work starts from the marriage on, and that's when you close a business, and that is when the real excitement starts. Okay, so again, that's the way I look at it, and it's just not about financial engineering.
Right. No, I love that. So this podcast is called Legacy Engineered. What does legacy look like to Tom that you're in process of building?
Okay, well, I'll share you my legacy that I'm building now, which is right now directed in 3 different foundations on that, or pillars. But let me share this, is that what I wish for every entrepreneur is that they're going to have 3 exits in their lifetime. And maybe the three exits are all also on your same business, and you can architecture them and you can engineer that for it to happen. The first, what I say is your first exit should give you some level of financial freedom. You paid off your house, your debt, you have cash, and you're comfortable, and you have a wonderful cushion there that you can live the lifestyle you want to, and you know that you have a really a nice amount of cushion, and you're comfortable. Okay. And therefore, you can live life and start building your business from a point of abundance. Your next exit is top of the mountain, top of the summit. You have the financial freedom that you don't ever have to work over a day in your life. But if you're an entrepreneur, you love the game, but you're doing it from a point of pure financial freedom that you can do whatever you want to. You never have to worry about money. The third exit is what's your legacy wealth. It is basically generational wealth, their diagnostic wealth for your kids and their children. So again, my wish for every entrepreneur is that they have three. And if you architecture right, if you love your business, you can actually accomplish that with your existing business and don't have to keep on starting new ones or buying ones and starting it. Now, for me, Scott, personally, first of all, I'm always focused on my family. It's my biggest reason why, and that is my closest circle. So whatever I can do for my wife and my girls and my family is I'm all there, and that to me is tremendous fulfillment as far as and what I view ultimately is the legacy. That's my first level of legacy is especially my girls. That's my legacy. The second thing from a legacy perspective is the people I impact over my lifetime. When I am my last day on this planet, I want to be thinking back on not how much money that I made or how many businesses I built and sold. It's going to be is how many people did I impact in a very important way over my lifetime. So we're thinking about impact. And right now, the way I'm impacting is I believe entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of basically the economies of the world. We are the creators. We are the mad visionaries. We're the ones who we can't help ourselves but to solve problems that no one else is going to solve. We're going to roll up their sleeves. We're going to put all our heart in. We will be working, 80, 100 hours a week, which could be for nothing in the end. And we will take that risk day in, day out to create something to solve problems that have impact. And that's why I love entrepreneurs. And for right now is I believe the force multiplier for entrepreneurs is through acquisition. I don't care whether you're starting your next business or you're scaling it. And very simply is, and let me just give you a simple fact is if you go all in and you grow your business organically, and I'm the king of organic growth. I love it. I love strategies on marketing and sales and operational efficiency, again, and leverage and data and technology. If you're really good and you focus and you have a mature business and your goal is to grow 20% every year, the reality is you don't always hit that. There's a black swan event of a down year. And if you average 10% annual compounded growth every year for 5 years, you did a great job. You increased the value of business by 60%. Now, if you dedicate 10% of your organizational resources to every year buy one company half your size every year for 5 years, you'll increase the value of your business by 2,000%, 60% versus 2,000. And every acquisition should solve your biggest challenge and give you more freedom and allow you to operate at another level. Okay, so I want entrepreneurs to understand there is a better way and there is an option more than just your typical organic growth, strategic partnership, data and technology, and now AI. There is something else you should be thinking about is adding strategic acquisitions. And for that, that's why I'm investing anywhere from a third to half my time into supporting a community of entrepreneurs and basically turning entrepreneurs into acquirers in addition to everything else. And we do that such as, you came to one of our one-day events. We run a few of those a year. We have our events, DealCon CEO M&A Summit, where we get between 165 to 200 entrepreneurs in a room. And if for 3 days, we get to share our playbook. Here's how we do it. Here's our resources. Let me introduce you to capital people. Let me introduce you to attorneys, tax people. So again, I love that. I get a lot of energy. And then we're helping as a community about 50 entrepreneurs actually buy 1 to 3 businesses a year. And so that's legacy number 2, as well as I moved to Israel a year and a half ago, as well as building that legacy of the people's lives that I can impact there. The third is my next business and my next business model. Something that I don't know anyone's ever done before. in a model perspective. And this is what we're working very hard on. And my goal is to change the lives of 100 entrepreneurs to create that true wealth freedom that they're really looking for. And so what we're doing is we have a new platform that we're launching in Q3 of next year. And we're just going to be doing, originally, it's going to be one roll-up platform per quarter, and eventually one roll-up every platform every single month, helping businesses merge, scale, and then in 3 years to exit.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Tom, this has been incredible, my man. I appreciate you being on and imparting your knowledge and experience and wisdom to our listeners. So again, I thank you for being here. And, if you're listening right now and something in this conversation sparked an idea for you, here's the big takeaway. Sometimes the fastest way to grow your business isn't building something new. It's buying the right piece of the puzzle. So to our listeners, if this conversation sparks something for you and you're ready to take the next step towards protecting what you're building, structuring your business strategically, and designing a lasting legacy, we invite you to schedule a complimentary consultation with our team. Visit www.controllersltd.com to book your session and start building with intention. Thank you for tuning in to Legacy Engineered. Until next time, keep building with intention and engineering a legacy that lasts. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for listening to Legacy Engineered. For more episodes and to connect with Scott and the team at Controllers Limited, visit controllersltd.com. You can also follow Scott on Instagram and LinkedIn and start building your legacy with confidence today.